I haven't watched Markiplier consistently in years, probably closer to a decade really. Going into this movie, I had my immediate concerns. This is a YouTuber's movie, and so I shouldn't expect much. And while it's true that I could see many expected issues and limitations, I was also pretty impressed with what Mark and his team managed to do, so I thought I'd talk about it here. Full spoilers ahead. I played Iron Lung back when it was first released, and the experience was fine. It's a very self-contained indie horror game, but it uses its limits to its advantage, creating real claustrophobia. The monotonous gameplay as you navigate the submarine through the cave system, hoping to find a way out, is also followed by an undercurrent of dread, knowing that somewhere beyond the camera and outside these metal walls is probably alive, that you weren't just in a sea of blood ocean, that something else was down there with you. Iron Lung is such a self-contained experience that it creates immediate complications when trying to turn it into a movie. On one hand, it's not hard to replicate. It's a game that takes place entirely in one isolated room. But in the game, you spend your time navigating, and as the player, you are actively involved with this simple exploration. But player participation doesn't exist in a movie, and so a movie has to change its focus in some way to make things work. Enter Markiplier's Iron Lung, which attempts to do just that. One thing I will say, which is the biggest compliment I can give the movie, I was not bored through most of the film, which is impressive when you consider the limitations of being stuck in one room for its 2-hour runtime. That would be a challenge for an experienced director. The filmmakers develop ideas in a natural extension from the game, such as making the monster's eldritch horror more obvious, as our main character Simon starts to hallucinate voices, getting more and more confused by what is real and what is not. Another aspect is having Simon being pulled up from the ocean and then sent back down, each time getting more desperate for his freedom, hoping that people above will let him out of the submarine. I really loved the shot of Ava looking back at Simon after wiping blood away from the window. It actually made the whole thing more claustrophobic for me because it was a reminder of how close Simon is to freedom. It really makes it feel pretty cruel when they send him back down. It's been such a long time since I played the game, so I'll probably get details wrong here and there, just as a warning. There's a lot of smaller moments aboard the sub which were from the game, like the fire being started below, but many moments that are entirely new for the film. I like the added space where Simon had to go under the submarine to make repairs, and I like the use of the onboard terminal, which adds to the plot of trying to recover data for the people above. Mark does a pretty decent job acting in this role, but I won't lie, it's hard to take seriously a face who you've seen screaming at video games, but I think the runtime is so long that my brain just accepted it halfway in. But seriously, he's doing a better job than I expected for a YouTuber. I don't know how long the movie took to make or how much acting experience Mark has. I went into this movie with low expectations. Aside from later parts in the movie where the melodrama starts to get a bit annoying, Mark spends most of his time in this role pretty grounded and okay to watch. Nothing blew me away with his acting, but nothing was offensively bad either. He looked the part of a grizzled convict, and he played it well enough. It only starts to grate in the latter half of the movie, where the whole premise starts to become a bit overstretched. In a way, I'm impressed that they decided to make the film this long, given its simple premise. There's a lot of messiness to the movie, which I expected, and so I'm not so harsh on it, perhaps, as I would be if this was a Hollywood movie. I was laughing with a friend near the end at how much the shaky camera took over, as it was clear they were now at the point of, we want this to look dramatic while not much is happening, and so the camera goes absolutely bonkers. Part of why the game works so well is because it refrains from saying too much about what's going on. Outside of the opening blurb about the stars dying and the blood ocean, very little is said, but in a 2-hour movie, that would be impossible without killing your audience with boredom. And so while I do think that they expanded the ideas in natural ways, like giving Simon a mission and returning him to the surface, or including other human characters speaking to him throughout the journey, these things also dilute what made the game feel claustrophobic. And it's not a strong criticism. I don't know how else they could have done this as a movie without those expansions. But it means that the film can tell the audience too much at times and not enough at others. Like, I think some who aren't familiar with the game might find what Simon is doing a bit confusing at times. And I think they should have had, like, an AI voice on the submarine, a robot or something occasionally giving commands. In the game you read instruction manuals, but in a film that doesn't work without sounding forced. A robot voice like the mother from Alien would have worked, maybe just at the beginning to explain things a bit better for the non-player audience. It's not hard to get the gist of it, but there are times where Simon is doing things and you hear him awkwardly mumble explanations because without us seeing the manuals, it's hard to follow a character who is by themselves trying to figure things out. For example, the maps didn't make sense even as someone who played the game. I understood what he was probably doing, but I don't think Simon's directions were clear or why he was marking certain areas. And since navigation is so important in both the game and the movie's premise, I think it could have been made clearer. And this leads me into something I wanted but we didn't get, and that's a view of the outside. Okay, it's not entirely true, we do get some glimpses, but just let me say, I know some might say, well, the game doesn't show the blood ocean much because it adds to the isolation. And I agree when we are talking about the game. But because the game has active player participation, this helps us map out and understand our surroundings in a stronger sense than the film audience can have. And so in the film, we lack the sense of immediacy. We don't control the direction of the sub in the movie, we watch someone else do it. And so the movie, I think, could have benefited from a few more shots of the submarine in the ocean, not to expand the world, but to show just how small the submarine is in it. And yes, I know we get the photos, that's a huge part of the game too. But these still images are the exact same idea from the game, and in that way, I felt it was a little too similar. I wanted a little bit more. I understand that for both an indie game and an indie movie, that might not be in the budget. But the movie would have benefited a bit from this. Even just showing the submarine descending into the blood ocean would have helped, as it would have made us more aware of the horrifying situation our main character is being forced into, because the sense of space we get in the game is partly created by playing the game, by active participation, and that's missing in a film. So you're entirely relying on visual, and there's not enough visuals. There's a great hallucination scene where Simon sees this eldritch god as he's swimming in the blood water, and there's a really cool shot at the end where the submarine is eaten by the monster. The cinematography in certain parts was actually really good. I just wished we had a bit more of the ocean shown, even briefly. I feel like there's more I could say, but I'll leave it here with my final thoughts. This movie impressed me with what it tried to accomplish, and with the clear love for the source material, and how the creators expanded it in ways that made sense. In some ways, the film crew took on both an easy and a hard project. The restrictions worked from a budget point of view, but also forced creativity in order to justify its runtime. In order to stretch a simple game premise into a movie. I like the costuming, the set design, most of the shots aside from the shaky cam end, and I enjoyed Mark's acting. It's definitely got me curious about future works from him, but also the indie movie scene in general and what other YouTubers might attempt such a feat. Not bad at all.